myself, Stephen Sansone, Ian Kennedy, and Nick Giannino. The first topic we're going to focus on is first impressions. Amy Cuddy, as we've all been introduced to, a social psychologist from Harvard, is basically telling us that we have to focus on making a memorable first impression. There's a couple ways to do that, but the most important part is remembering Amy's Wonderland post, which we'll probably never forget where we were at after this class, and how using it correctly will give you the opportunity to portray the right body language towards the person or people you're presenting to or interviewing with or meeting with. The main thing we want to talk about is increasing your cortisol levels while you're decreasing your testosterone levels. And I just thought of this before class, but I used to teach recruiting, hiring, and training for a .com company in San Diego for about 5 years. I had to fight the San Diego traffic on work every morning, so I remember that when I got there before my training class, I had to take about 5 minutes to just sit back in my chair, kick back with my hands behind my head, and put my legs up on the desk, just relax before I drive in from work, to work. So inadvertently, I was actually doing something that she was talking about. It does work, and take a couple minutes and go through and think about what you're going to be doing in your meeting with your person or group. You want to create a trustworthy type persona and really focus on what the person who you're interviewing with or meeting with is going to be thinking about you. They're also going to think about what are this person's intentions towards me, as well as how strong and confident is this person in his presentation or answering the questions that they're throwing at you. Research shows that this accounts for 80 to 90% in overall first impressions, holds true across cultures, so it's not just in this country, but it's wherever you are in the world. First impressions are key. Another topic that I'm going to speak about is using the 2x2 matrix method. And the end result is that all of us, inadvertently, whether we want to or not, we end up throwing people into categories. And there's a 2x2 matrix that we can look at and pretty much decipher what we're going to throw something into without even thinking about it. You don't have a lot of groups that are both trusted or not trusted and not respected, or loved and respected. If you look at the box, you're usually going to be in a diagonal type area where you're either high confident, little warmth, or low confidence, lots of warmth. It's the groups that are most likely to be targeted for genocide, which is something that was really interesting in the article that we read, was when the status quo, what you're used to, is threatened, you're going to be hated but respected. The two key examples we can think of would be the Germans and the Jews, or the Tutsis and the Rwandans. And something that they threw in there was the Cambodians, educated Cambodians and non-educated Cambodians, which I think you can find across cultures as well. Educated in whatever culture you're in, against non-educated, same culture. With that, I'm going to pass this over to Ian to tie up first impressions.
All right, continuing with first impressions, this is just some tips on how to make a good first impression and how to convey trust. The first thing that we see is that basically that trust begets trust. That's just saying that if you trust someone, they're more likely to trust you. So how do we convey trust in the first interaction? We let the other person speak first. We make the other person feel understood, and we collect information about the other person's interests. Ms. Cuddy really talked about chit chat. She said, a lot of people think of it as a waste of time, but she said that's one of the most important things that you can do is small talk. All right. So I have the transition. So we're moving on to bosses say pick up the phone. We start with Patty Baxter. She's a 20-year veteran of a publishing company in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and she's got a problem with decreasing sales. And she points to four symptoms of the problem. She says that sending email is sometimes not good enough. She says this because in the article she had an issue where one of her staff thought that they had a sale and they were corresponding with the client through email, and it ended up just fell through again. And she said that it could have been avoided had the transaction gone over the phone rather than the email. Her sales staff are pretty much all under 35, and they like to email pitches, and they do not like to use the phone. And you know, we can just think about this and say, well, that's probably not the best idea. You don't really get any picture of who a person is usually when they're emailing you, unless there's a picture in the email. But you know, you like to be a little personal. You like to be able to, you know, tell somebody who you are, and you know, get to know somebody maybe a little bit before you start throwing a pitch at them. The third point, yeah, it's a primary issue is that it's focused on millennial generation. That's most of us. Apparently, we just don't like to use the telephone. I'm not sure why. It seems like a lot of the time we just don't have very good telephone skills. We'd rather send a text, you know. But she does come in and say that you know, knowing the technology doesn't automatically ensure success, but avoiding the phone can hurt business, as it did with the email, and hinder creativity, ultimately delay projects. So some millennials had some interesting thoughts about the telephones. This is some thoughts that we read from the article. People see phone calls as an interruption to their work, especially when they're just sitting there plowing through the computer, just doing what they do, and they get a phone call. That annoys some people. They'd rather just correspond by email. They think of phones as a hindrance more than a help. That kind of goes with the first one there. You know, it's just a waste of time. Yes, one sales administrator actually went as far as to unplug their phone and put it in a cabinet. So they got rid of their hindrance there. And they had the mentality of using phones as a last resort. So when through the email they're really seeing that, wow, this communication is just not going well, and I'm just having a really hard time conveying what I'm trying to say to this person. This comes up a lot, especially when we're, you know, contacting people of other cultures, you know, or, you know, mainly other countries, international sales. You know, things can be misconstrued as, you know, plain text lies. And if we can just have a little bit more real-time interaction with a person, then we can usually try and we do a better job of understanding and getting our point across as well. Nick?
All right, so after reviewing these two articles, you should be able to see that we're bridging the gap here with the first impressions and the chit-chat and small talk. The importance of building personal rapport with your sales client is very important. So, for example, can I borrow $1? Well, more than likely you're probably going to say no because you don't really know me, but you know me a little bit. Hey, how are you doing? What's your name?
Lindsay.
I'm Nick. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Man, I was just in such a rush today to leave out of the house, and I forgot my wallet, and I really need to get a Scantron. Would you mind helping me out? Can I borrow $1? Please?
Yeah.
So the small talk that you have, it pays dividends. The abruptness of just being short and, you know, learn somebody's first name and be personal with them. That's very important. First impressions can be difficult or even misconstrued through emails, as Ian spoke about that. They say like 80% of communication is done through body language, so you're completely eliminating that, and you're also eliminating any voice inflection that may be picked up over the phone, that you're going to miss out on that. So you never want to underestimate the importance of small talk. Again, we kind of already touched on that. So we did some outside research just because the information in the articles was relatively limited, comparatively speaking, to a chapter that is full of information. So these bullet items shouldn't be anything that you guys haven't heard or seen. More than likely, you've probably seen it in our professional development or any type of career management course. Ask open-ended questions. Do you like UTD? Yeah. What is it that you like about UTD so much?
The scheduling of classes better than most universities.
So you see the difference. You ask a yes or no question, and you're going to get a very abrupt ending to that correspondence that you have. If you ask an open-ended question, then our conversation went on. It didn't end as abruptly. So username, I already talked briefly about that. I used to wait tables. How many of you guys wait tables or have waited tables? Anybody who remembered my name when I waited on them, I always gave them better service just because they made it personal to me. Another skill, learn communication modalities. So kind of be in tune to what people are saying and take these context clues. Somebody who is a visual learner or comprehends things more visually than through audio may respond with a looks good to me or I get the picture. And somebody who responds to sounds better and comprehends things more on sound might respond in this way. Sounds good to me or listen to this. Again, with Amy Cuddy's power pose, reduce the cortisol level and increase your testosterone level, boost that confidence. How important your first impressions are in projecting your level of trustworthiness. Again, your trustworthiness, as I'm sure most of you guys got from these articles, is the more important of the two, trustworthiness and confidence. How vital it is to let the other party take the floor, ask questions first to create the trustworthiness with the intention to disarm them by making them feel warm. So you want to let them speak, and that opens up that warmth in that conversation. And the last bullet item, the technology, tech-savvy millennials in the contrast of the Generation X or the older generation. I think if we mesh those and utilize the skills that both have to offer, then it creates a much more dynamic and cohesive working environment. All right, on to the quiz. Does anyone have any questions for us?
I'll pass out copies of the quiz, but first would you guys read the questions and then I can turn the video off? Just read them out loud.
Absolutely. Yeah. Question 1, the millennial generation is confused about the office phones that don't have a blank button. Question 2, which of the two measured metrics that we must evaluate when meeting an individual for the first time is most important? And communicating through blank is sometimes just not good enough. Phone calls should be used more often. Question 4, the importance of building personal blank